everyone, and welcome to today's Connect and Learn webinar. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today or in the future via recording. My name is Rebecca and I will be facilitating today's webinar, Validating and De-stigmatising, a case study of online support for affected family members. This webinar is a part of a series of Connect and Learn webinars designed to support AOD clinicians throughout Victoria. The series is funded by the Victorian Department of Health and hosted by Turning Point. We do want the webinars to be interactive, so please ask questions for our presenters via the Q&A function. I'll collate the questions and I'll have them ready for our presenters at the end. Please be aware that our webinars are recorded and are later made available on the Turning Point website. We do encourage you to stay to the end and complete the exit survey when the QR code appears on the final slide. You'll also receive the survey via email today. Our presenters have happily agreed to share a copy of the slides, which will be emailed to you also. Now I'd like to introduce our presenters, Dr. Annette Pert and Robert Campbell. Annette is a research fellow at Turning Point, leading research and evaluation projects involving telephone and online interventions. And Rob is the manager of family drug and gambling help at SHARC and has been in the field for over 25 years. Thank you both for joining us today. Annette, I'll pass it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm presenting today. That's the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. These lands were stolen and sovereignty was never ceded, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I also acknowledge the individual and collective expertise of those with a living or lived experience of mental health, alcohol and other drug issues, and I recognise their vital contribution at all levels and value the courage of those who share this unique perspective for the purpose of learning and growing together to achieve better outcomes for all. Today's presentation, we will introduce you to the Breakthrough program and the research project that we worked on together, the methods that we used, what we found, and what this means. I'll now hand over to Rob Campbell, who will talk to you about Breakthrough.
Thanks, Ines. And just also I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting. I'm meeting on the lands of the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and echoing, of course, the importance and significance of people with lived and living experience, especially in the family space, their courage and enormous contribution in this area. It's very exciting to present today because it's a real celebration of the work of supporting families and the importance of making connections with a number of organisations that we've worked with, obviously with Turning Point in this research project. Just to give an overview and context of Breakthrough, Breakthrough is an education program, so it's not a therapy group. It's an education program that's part of Family Drug and Gambling Help, which is a program of SHARC, Self-Help Addiction Resource Centre. SHARC is known as focusing on lived and living experience and supporting recovery, but really challenging stigma and shame. And I think that there's a great recognition of the importance of overcoming shame and stigma, and working with lived experience helps to do that enormously, especially when connecting with families too. Just to give an overview of where Breakthrough fits within Family Drug and Gambling Help, there are a suite of programs that support families affected by drugs and alcohol and gambling. The most important would be the helpline, in that it's staffed by trained volunteers with their own lived experience, which provides an immediate point of contact and connection where people can feel supported and get the referral needs that they need, as well as actually hearing their stories. We have support groups, which are face-to-face and online, and that's obviously going to be a focus of our presentation as well today. And we have family education. So in addition to Breakthrough, we have In Focus, which is a closed group over 6 sessions, whereas the Breakthrough is a more open-ended group. And we'll be talking about those unique features in a moment. And then Three Sides to the Coin, which is a very important program that really enacts stories of people's recovery in gambling primarily, but we're really appreciating the intersectionality of how that connects with alcohol and drugs, mental health, family violence and justice issues as well. So Breakthrough was a program that came out of funding in 2015 from the state government in response to the concerns and prevalence of methamphetamine use in the community, or ICE. So it was developed as a partnership between Turning Point, Family Drug Help at the time, now Family Drug and Gambling Help, and the Bouverie Centre. So as I said before, Breakthrough is very much an education program, and for friends and partners, working for people who are providing information who are struggling with addiction in its different forms. This was originally conceived as focusing on ICE, but feedback from families really got us to think about how to broaden and diversify the information provided. So as a result, we've got a new tagline, Families Understanding Addiction, because although ICE has unique features, the broader themes that we recognise that we needed to focus on really were encompassing of addiction. So the objectives of Breakthrough, there are 5 key ones, and as we said before, the slides of this presentation will be available. But it's really about providing square and centre the opportunity for families to get good practical advice and good information at any point along their journey. That very much relates to issues that families may be addressing. It's also about strengthening skill sets and understanding of how to actually apply those in a living environment, and that's always a challenge. It's about also getting help, where to get help. I think that families and services generally, there are quite a few different services, but how to navigate those services is very difficult. So just giving a sense of what's available is really critical. And also the importance of actually providing a response for people who are dependent on drugs, how families can respond, but most importantly, how they can recognise they have their own needs, but also what they can do to support their loved one. And also to be accessible to different communities, including First Nations, but also communities from cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds. So the key features of Breakthrough, it's very much evidence-based. So we draw, and this will be talked about a little bit more by Annette, but the evidence base is around the 5-step model, which is developed in the UK. And there are a number of topics that, as I said before, clearly focus on skill development and insight and knowledge. So some of those are understanding the principles of addiction and very much understanding in the context of it being a public health issue, not a moral issue. Addiction and mental health, because we know that the crossover or intersectionality between mental health and addiction is very high. Family relationships and dynamics and how to respond to those and understand those dynamics. Boundaries and safety plans. We know that for many families, violence in its many forms can emerge in the context of substance use. So really having a clear sense of what it means to be in a safe environment and what good boundaries can be put in place to protect that safety. Communication with confidence, and that comes with practice. And then recovery for everyone. So it's not just about families in recovery, but it's also supporting those in recovery themselves. But we can't do the work for the person in recovery, but we can certainly indirectly support them as well, and that's a really key thing that we talk about. A really important factor in this, like any group facilitation, but skilled facilitators, and the advantage and benefit of coming from the perspective of lived experience, but also collaboration. So this has been an amazing collaboration between Turning Point, and really want to shout out to Anna Guthrie, who'd been part of this research at Turning Point, and of course our team at Family Drug and Gambling Help, Ben Hunter, who's the project lead at Breakthrough, and Nikki Scarlett, who also facilitates those groups. And we now welcome Lauren Zelanka from Turning Point too. So it's been a very close-knit, collaborative, exciting program that really continues to connect with families. The other important thing is that it's one thing to give information, but it's another thing for families to have that brief opportunity to share, and by seeing others in a similar situation, realising that they're not alone and that they can actually connect with others. And again, we then provide pathways for them to follow up on those connections that they may want to pursue, whether ongoing support groups or more education, maybe through In Focus counselling ideally, or other forms of support through the helpline. Another important feature we offer too is that we provide callback to participants. So If families would like a callback, that's something that we do, because obviously it's not a one-stop shop. This is something that takes time to process and internalise and make difference in the family environment. So we're always there, willing to and be available to provide ongoing support. In terms of the reach and adaptation of Breakthrough, so originally the program was delivered 2 hours over 2 weeks, so it was two 2-hour sessions. Come COVID, we've had a silver lining in that we've actually had to adapt the program and pivot to being online. Now, as a result, what we chose to do was to deliver these programs, the 6 education sessions I mentioned earlier, 1 per week over 6 sessions. Now, what that allowed was the opportunity for families to really come in and choose the topic that was most relevant to them. So there wasn't that sense that they have to sit through every program. And built on that too is the other additional resources they can connect with. So we found that families were really well engaged with that process. We always felt the gold standard was face-to-face, that sense of an enclosed, connected group, but we've actually been surprised the level of uptake and connection, especially for people who are in regional or remote areas or in situations where they're not in a position to leave the family home, even if they're literally next door. So it's really provided that sense of reach and connection. Another fascinating thing we found was that because it was online, we had people literally from around the world. So we had people from Myanmar, we had people from Poland, from Ireland, from the UK, from the US. So we've had people literally all around the world, not to mention across Australia. So that also reinforced to us the power and the reach, good information, but also good online connection and support that could be achieved. So we've easily reached over 7,000 participants since we began in 2015. And since the advent of the online series, that number's gone up enormously because of the breadth and reach that we've had. In addition to that, we've obviously had a lot of published materials and released over 5,000 booklets. We've also developed excellent resources online as well, which will be links at the end of this session.
Thanks, Rob. I'm now going to give a little bit of background from the literature regarding affected family members. And this also includes partners, friends, but we'll use the term affected family members. And we know that they face challenges to their well-being, safety, and their family dynamics in an environment of stigma and social isolation. Family members require a range of coping strategies to manage their own health and well-being and also to help support their relative. There are significant gaps in education and support for family members themselves, with few face-to-face programs and even less in the online environment. So providing support online has the potential to overcome barriers to accessing support to help family members, and it also can be tailored to suit the different needs and preferences. Active engagement in an online environment can enhance social connectedness and contribute to positive well-being. So increasing the availability of an active referral to online family peer support may also reduce the geographic isolation for people in regional and rural areas who are unable to attend face-to-face programs. And it also helps to address their concerns about privacy and stigma. Now I'll talk a little bit about how we developed this research project. So funding was received through the Alcohol and Drug Foundation for researchers in partnership with service providers to strengthen the evidence of existing programs or projects that focus on delivery of information and support for family and friends. So internal Breakthrough feedback indicated that after attending Breakthrough, people did feel less stigmatised and had more confidence to better address family issues. But how they put those into place and implemented them in their daily lives after Breakthrough wasn't known. So we formed a steering group comprising representatives from Turning Point, SHARC, and Monash University. And we worked together to design the aims of the research project and the best ways to optimise our data collection for this really, very limited time that we had for the project. And so at this point, I'd also like to acknowledge the people who worked on developing the research. So Heather Pickard and Rosemary McLean from SHARC, and Freya Horn, Dad Lumban, and Victoria Manning from Turning Point in developing the project. Our research question was, How does Breakthrough support family members to improve their skills and confidence in coping with a relative's substance misuse and connection to social support? And to answer this question, we use a mixed methods approach, which mixed methods is referring to a combination of quantitative data and qualitative data collection and analysis. So there's two components of this research. The first is the breakthrough interviews, and the second is the link to the online support group. So for the breakthrough interviews, they took place between July and December 2021. And the first thing we did was we analysed the existing participant evaluation forms that Breakthrough had, which helped us be informed of the questions that we would use for our interview guide. To recruit participants, information about the research project and a link to an online expression of interest form was shared with attendees at the end of each breakthrough session. 30 attendees expressed interest in an interview, 2 declined to participate, and 7 were unable to complete the interview in the time frames that we had. And so the remaining 21 participants were interviewed. The interviews were by telephone and transcribed. Interviews ranged from 15 to 35 minutes with an average time of 24 minutes. And we used Brown and Clark's 6-phase reflexive thematic analysis approach to analyse the interviews. We used a number of processes to ensure analytic rigour. For example, we had a sufficient sample of data to show density of evidence for each theme. We had long-term engagement with the data, and we met frequently during data analysis to progress the theme development. For the online support group component of the research project, this took place between September 2021 and May 2022. So participants were recruited from Breakthrough, and at the end of each breakthrough session, attendees were informed of the online support group and research project, and a registration link was shared. After they completed an online registration form and provided informed consent, they received Zoom details and a request to complete a pre-group online survey or a baseline survey. 3 months after attending their first group session, participants were invited via email to complete a second online survey, or the exit survey. In the exit survey, we asked them if they were interested in completing an additional phone interview to explore their experiences of the group in more depth. So the data that we collected was their demographic information and their experiences of supporting their relative, their relationship to their relative, and how long they had been helping their relative. And we administered some measures, including the general self-efficacy scale, personal wellbeing index, and the social connectedness scales. And in addition, at baseline, we administered also 3 more scales: the client satisfaction questionnaire, the group sessions rating scale, and the perceived personal benefit scale. For the interviews, we completed them by phone, and we had 11 people that we interviewed, and the interviews were on average 27 minutes long. And the statistics were analysed via R and Starter. And so when participants had more than one baseline outcome recorded and more than one exit outcome recorded in self-efficacy, wellbeing, or social connectedness, they were considered complete cases and had complete data, and they were included in the main analysis. And with the qualitative interviews, they were analysed using a conventional content analysis approach, which is used to describe a phenomenon where there's limited existing theory or research on the topic. And we developed the codes from the data, so we didn't go into the interviews and the analysis with preconceived ideas of what we would find. For the intervention, it was an online peer-led support group building on the topics of Breakthrough, delivered weekly via Zoom. So the aim was to build on those topics, but also provide opportunities for the participants to share their experiences and connect with others. underpinned by the stress strain coping support model. And the support group was delivered 18 times between September and March. Each lasted 1 hour and was held immediately after the breakthrough session. And the groups were led by the breakthrough facilitators. The group was open, so as new participants were able to join at any stage over the course of the research. Just briefly, the stress strain coping support model by Orford and colleagues argues that the chronic stress of having an addiction problem in the family results in family members experiencing emotional and physical health problems, but how family members cope and the social support they receive can provide greater or lesser protection against the effects of this stress. And it was this model that underpinned our research with the new online support group. So with the breakthrough participants, for the interviews, we had 21 participants, average age of 53, and they were all women. 14 lived in Melbourne and 7 in rural or regional areas of Victoria. The primary drug of concern was methamphetamine or ice, followed by alcohol and polysubstance use. They were the ones that were most common. And most supported their child, their adult child, or a partner or ex-partner for an average of 5.4 years. And the range for the length of time supporting their family member was from 2 months to 17 years. Through our analysis of the 21 interviews, we developed 3 themes. First, experience of validation. Second, not fixing, stepping back. And third, education to help make sense of experiences. So I'm just going to talk a bit about these themes now. Theme 1 explains how attending breakthrough facilitated changes in participants' feelings and beliefs, a process they described as validating and destigmatizing. They emphasised the impact of seeing their decisions, emotions, and experiences recognised as normal and valid through Breakthrough's educational messages and peer facilitators and the other attendees. So stigma and destigmatisation explicitly and implicitly was linked with their accounts of validation. For example, one of the participants, Diane, said, "It's helped me feel validated and reassured as a mum that sometimes tough love is what's needed and I'm doing the right thing, even when there's conflict. I didn't really believe that before I did breakthrough because everybody I know has not had this kind of experience. I was going by my gut and I wasn't always sure my gut was right, so this helped me feel empowered. I was doing the best with what I had and that I wasn't alone. There are plenty of other regular-looking parents out there that are going on with this sort of stuff." Theme 2 captures participants' experiences of attending breakthrough, which allowed them to reflect critically on approaches to their relative substance use and ongoing efforts to move from a negative fixing approach to a positive stepping back approach. Hence the title of this theme, Not Fixing, Stepping Back. And this theme expands on theme 1. So attending breakthrough helped support a shift in participants' thinking. They consistently described their past fixing approach in negative terms as attempting to control and fix the circumstance, course, and impacts of their relatives' substance use, resulting in distress, guilt, and conflict for themselves and their family. In the stepping back approach they aspired to, participants described establishing boundaries, accepting limited control over what happens, and allowing relatives to bear the consequences of their actions. Benita told us, learning to let go and not wanting to fix the issue because it's not necessarily fixable. I haven't stopped, but I'm not as full on in action mode and needing to come up with solutions on behalf of my son. But I certainly have stepped back from that. And Julia, there were many points in that session, and she's referring to the session where they talk about boundaries, of how to use the right words. where you can gain the person's confidence that you are stepping back and making them deal with their own problem. You won't keep stepping in for them because that's just detrimental. Finally, theme 3, education to help make sense of experiences, refers to participants perceiving breakthrough as meeting their urgent and fundamental need to learn about addiction and to make sense of their experiences. In their descriptions, they came to breakthrough feeling they didn't have the skills or knowledge to respond effectively or cope with and process their experiences. So acquiring information and skills was the primary driver in participants' decisions to attend the program and was necessary to process, understand, and cope with the addiction and its related impacts. As Nicole told us, I wanted factual information. I didn't want someone to go, there, isn't this horrible? I just want to know everything. I want to know everything about what's happening to my beautiful boy. We also asked participants about their experiences of attending Breakthrough online. And overall, they indicated a preference for the online setting. In particular, they described several barriers that will prevent them from attending face-to-face programs. For example, geographic barriers, family and parenting obligations, or they were supporting their relative, or they were at work. So participants also described the online setting as non-threatening, especially for new attendees, as they could turn their camera off and just use the chat function or just log in and listen, choosing their level of involvement and anonymity. Several also noted additional online positives, such as being able to log on from any location on their phone or their laptop, or they could even log on from the car. And they liked the idea of the mute function, so facilitators were able to present without interruptions or distractions. However, despite the overall preferences for online attendance, and it could be a function for the fact that this was during COVID when it was online, some people also described face-to-face or being in person as a warmer experience, which allowed for a greater sense of connection than can be achieved online. So the second part of our study was looking at linking people to the online support group. And so in this part of the study, we had 54 participants complete the baseline survey and 23 completed the exit survey. So that they were the completed participants. We had one male in this cohort and the rest were female with an average age of 54. Most of them, again, were in the metropolitan Melbourne area, 4 were regional. And the most common person they were supporting was, again, their adult child, also their partner or ex-partner and a parent, friend or another person. Again, the average was 5 years as an affected family member. And they attended an average of 4.3 groups. So some people only attended 1, whereas others, as you can see from the range there, attended all 18 groups. And we interviewed 11 of these participants. So in our analysis of the data, we found that there was significant improvement in the mean general self-efficacy of completed participants. But we found there were no significant changes in wellbeing or social connectedness over time. Over 90% of the people who completed the exit survey said the group was satisfactory or very satisfactory, and 96% reported 1 or more benefits. And the most common benefits that were reported were a sense of connection, an ability to apply the strategies, improve knowledge of the coping strategies, and the ability to work through emotions. So the qualitative data from the 11 people that we interviewed, we had some themes from these as well. The first theme was connecting with others who share the same world, and participants described supporting their relative as something that can only be understood through lived experience. Connecting with others in the support group allowed them to feel less alone and more positive and grateful. And a sub-theme of that we called learning and contextualising. This is where the online support group enabled participants to better explore the strategies and information provided in Breakthrough, explore those more with their peers, get feedback and share their tips. The second main theme was it's the facilitators that make the group, and participants described the need or their experience of the group's facilitators as highly trained, professional, and importantly, having the skills to create a safe and positive group. Our participants said that without skilled facilitators, the support groups can be negative, and they also shared some experiences about previous groups they'd been involved in. The third theme was dipping in and out in times of need, and this was about participants' descriptions of engaging and disengaging with support based on their heightened or lowered sense of stress or crisis, or on the sense of the severity of their relative circumstances and their need to take breaks from focusing on addiction. And finally, the fourth theme was balancing the pros and cons of online versus face-to-face. And while participants generally favoured the online support group, many outlined that both online or face-to-face had their benefits. So just some quotes from some of the online support group interview participants. Erica said, "It just helps to get your eyes off yourself. People just gave good advice, just heard different ways that different people handle things, and that was helpful." Marjorie said the facilitators were great and they always worked hard at including everyone and giving everyone the opportunity to speak. It's the facilitators that worked hard at making it work. And Dawn mentioned, you're in the comfort of your home. You have privacy, you don't have to be up on the screen, but you can still listen. So in summary, our findings highlight how Breakthrough validates participants' experiences, particularly through addressing stigma. In fact, we had some participants talk about encouraging their friends who didn't experience addiction in their family to come along to Breakthrough to help reduce that stigma. Participants perceived a change in coping from fixing to stepping back. They were also able to harness the collective insights of peers and make sense of their experiences through education and support. Our findings suggested the intervention may have supported an improvement in participants' general self-efficacy, their confidence to manage situations and challenges in their life. And in particular, participants reported connection to others to be the most common benefit of the program, followed by learning about coping and learning new coping strategies. So engaging in programs such as Breakthrough may help alleviate the impacts of stigma on affected family members and also reduce their levels of self-stigma. Our participants indicated that beyond providing just practical skills and education, attending Breakthrough helped facilitate a change in their beliefs that allowed them to adopt a more positive self-image in relation to identification as an affected family member. Further research is needed to understand whether these experiences are shared by men and by other family members, as well as raising the question of how we can better support male family members to ask for and receive support.
So in terms of wrapping up our presentation and reflections of this program, what does this mean for programs like Breakthrough and the online support group? Well, as Annette said, the combination of evidence-based education and the connection with skill facilitation and the opportunity to share is critical to that way of working. I think what we found too is the continuity and familiarity of the presenters over time provided a point of connection and safety as well. And also to the capacity to move in and out of the groups, because families are at different points in managing the challenges that face them. and really zeroing in on what was a particular topic. We also found that working with boundaries and particular themes around communication were a very popular one that they came back to time and time again. And also to the capacity to be followed up so that they're not lost to follow up, but really have that opportunity for warm referral to other services and other supports, either within family drug and gambling help or more broadly in the other AOD sector or in mental health supports as well. So really broadening the fact that there is no wrong door in what we're embracing and really providing connection for as many possible supports. The other important thing to mention too is that with the families, they could then continue on in different groups as well. So the model of the support group is education, followed by the opportunity just to have a sharing so that there isn't this focus on fixing the problem or somehow coming up with a silver bullet, sometimes just sitting with and recognising the challenges, but knowing that there's that implicit support rather than feeling like they're a failure for challenging or dealing with those things and feeling that they have to somehow come up with the answer. Sometimes it's just the process of working with those emotions and getting the mutual support from the other members of the group. And just further reflections. Obviously, a program is more than just something that's a static program or a brochure or a booklet. We provided booklets, but often they'd find their way into glove boxes or the bottom of shelves. It's really the connection and active participation. And with the online support group, people having the opportunity to chat, use the chat function, and to actually actively engage and ask questions, which again was another means of feeling connected as well. Education and support comes in many forms, but the breakthrough model that has been developed, and especially in the online capacity, really we felt ticked all those boxes. And as a result of COVID and how this has worked, we're going to be retaining online delivery of programs. So, for example, the In Focus program is available online, as is a number of our support groups. So even though some of our support groups are returning face-to-face, a number of them are maintaining an online function as well. And I think one of the key features too is around the identification with lived experience. So the understanding that there is a sense of connection, people know they've been there, and that sense that they're not alone is one of the critical foundations. So in terms of resources, these are some links to some useful resources. So breakthroughforfamilies.com is where people can hop on and book a place for the breakthrough programs. Turning Point, obviously, .org.au has a lot of information resources, and then our website, SHARC.org.au. If you toggle down to Family Drug and Gambling Help, you'll see links to Breakthrough, other resources and other programs that we have. And one of the most effective ways too of getting in touch is through our helpline as well, which is on our website.
So thank you for joining us today. There's now time for Q&A, so please put your questions using the Q&A button, not the chat button, and we will be happy to answer the questions.
Thank you so much, Annette and Rob. I do have a few questions for you. So I guess unlike a number of other programs, it sounds like, needing to move completely to online was a real benefit for Breakthrough. Did you expect that?
We didn't expect it to be as successful as it was, and for the feedback from families, it didn't suit everyone. There were people who did prefer to wait for something that was face-to-face. But interestingly, since COVID, or coming out of COVID, we've found that when we've gone to make face-to-face presentations at organisations, we've had to cancel because there weren't the sufficient numbers. And if you're going to a regional area and you've got 4 people or 5 people registered, it's obviously not feasible, whereas the online has meant that consistently we have high numbers of people who we're engaging. So it's actually, like I said before, a real silver lining in how to connect with a bigger community. Having said that, I think there's still a place for face-to-face, but I think the world's changed in terms of how people are accessing supports as they've experienced COVID, and maybe it's just them coming back to what it means to be face-to-face again.
So who do you think's been captured with online that you weren't seeing previously?
I think more country areas. clearly internationally, which was an unexpected thing. But I think it also shows, though, the reality is that for whatever reason, a lot of people in city areas are needing to get access to support, but they're not able to, either because they're maybe a grandparent looking after grandchildren, or they're minding kids, or for their own challenges, finding a real struggle to leave the house, especially around the complexities of mental health issues and so on that people have been feeling during and after COVID as well.
Thank you.
Some of our participants talked about because it was online, it meant they didn't have to drive a long way to attend a group, especially the drive home, which may have been, there might have been a lot of emotions going on, a lot of thinking time, and they mentioned it just meant they didn't have to concentrate on driving, which was a big factor. They could just not have to worry about the getting there and the getting home element, and being able to manage what they were processing because of the group.
Thank you. How do you account for the low participation of men in the program, or was that just a study?
Well, it wasn't just the study. This is something that Rob and I and others have talked about. We were trying to think, how can we recruit more men to the online support group? The participants were, the demographics were just a function of the people who came to the group. So we didn't particularly target any particular group. In the literature about affected family members, you will find that a lot of the participants are women, and a lot of them are parents of an adult child. But Rob, I don't know if you have anything more to add to that?
Well, it's interesting. We presented at the FINET International Conference on Friday, and Annette and I were talking to this, and the organisers there, because we raised this question about men and engaging men, and they said, regardless of the setting, even the community, the country, the continent, engaging men in this way is consistently difficult. So I don't think there is a simple answer to that one. And yet we know, for example, with our helpline, we have a number of guys who've come on board to be on the helpline. So we have a good ratio of men involved in terms of providing support on the helpline, but in terms of active participation in groups, it's generally they're coming with their partner, or their partner is almost the emotional interpreter of things, and then relaying that back, so that they're getting support but indirectly through their partner is what we're really noticing. And yet I've seen with men's groups, because I've worked with men's groups before, when you connect in such a way that they feel safe and that they're in a closed space, it's amazing the synergy and the work that can happen. And they can't believe how enriching it is, but it's just getting through whatever those barriers are for them to take that risk, I suppose. And it is scary and risky to reach out, and I think anyone who reaches out for support is incredibly courageous, and it's challenging because it challenges the way we think about how to approach a problem and understand it. So there's definitely ways of doing it, but it just seems to be, in this particular setting, the uptake of men was consistently low.
Thank you. Thanks very much. How do families find out about the program? How's it advertised?
Well, we advertise in a number of ways. So we actively advertise, obviously through VADA e-news. We collaborate with agencies. So I think one of the really wonderful things about Breakthrough has been that we've co-located or co-presented at different settings, different AOD settings, who've then put the word out to their local communities, whether that's in regional areas. So all the main AOD services we've presented at, and also community settings too. So it's also through our website as well as the Breakthrough website too. But I think promotion and getting the word out is a consistent need. And because the more support that's out there, the more opportunities families have to get the support they need.
Thank you. Couple of questions about the groups. Are the online groups open or closed, and how large are they in terms of number of attendees?
So the groups are open-ended, and that's one of the good features of this. So Breakthrough is good because it just provides an open-ended opportunity for people to cherry pick what they want. So they don't have to sit through the 6 sessions, so it's not closed. And they can repeat as many sessions as they want to. And people have done that as well. So it's definitely open-ended. The hours of the group generally, or the online group was always in the evening. So always out of hours to make it more accessible for families and people to attend. And in terms of the groups, there was, in the early days, we had up to 100 people register. But in terms of the actual group, generally would be between 30 and 40. And in the initial stage of when we went online, the numbers were high, and they've slowly been coming down, but they've always been solid and consistently much higher than ever when we would do a face-to-face. So the numbers would vary between 20 to 30, which, again, for an intimate group, the rule of thumb is 12 people is a really good number for a closed group. But for an open-ended group, the emphasis is on getting information across. But there's still the function for people to ask questions in the chat, which then gets moderated by the facilitators. So it's not a therapy group, of course, and it's not an opportunity to go into depth about these issues, covering a lot of material, but it's still giving people the opportunity to ask questions. And through that, people identify, oh, that's something that relates to me, or that's something that I am struggling with. And there's that implicit sense of then connection. And again, that idea we talk about of not feeling alone, that they're seeing in other people's questions, challenges that they're having, or solutions that they're working towards themselves in a positive way, which then can lead to other supports within family, drug and gambling help or elsewhere in the community.
Thank you. And you answered our next question, which was about, do you operate outside of normal business hours? So thank you for that. Have you been seeing any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people attending the groups?
Yes, we have. And we've also worked with adapting a breakthrough for First Nations people as well. So that was something that we've trialled, and we've worked with a number of different communities as well. But it's not a mainstream thing that we roll out. It's very much based on invitation and working with respective communities and connecting in with what is important for them and touching on the particular themes or things which, from their perspective, are most useful for them too. So I think the breakthrough, while we have a set number of topics, there's always scope to be able to nuance it to particular communities, because we know that communities have different needs as well. So, for example, SHARC works with the MIAF programs, the Muslim Youth Adult and Family Program, which is a collaboration with Odyssey House Victoria and Salvation Army in Waisas, a Muslim community in the northwest of Melbourne, which is a funded program from Primary Health Networks. And that gives the opportunity in working with the Muslim community as to how some of those themes can be looked at through their lens too. So really the important thing for us is providing information that's also informed by what the needs are of the community.
Thank you. Moving forward, is there a capacity to have a breakthrough specifically for men to help them connect and seek assistance?
We're certainly open to that, and we'd be more than happy to do that. It would be recruiting them. I think developing, the models there, but that's something we've certainly thought about, definitely.
Thank you. Have you thought about or found 8 weeks might be more beneficial? Has there been any feedback from participants that they want more?
Sorry, more sessions?
More time, more sessions.
Yes, that's a tension between time and access, and some people have requested longer sessions. Having said that, though, the program's never been static, so we've evolved even between sessions in the 6 series. That there's a degree of modification as well, so that when someone comes again, the core materials are the same, but maybe there's a different video that's used or a different way of explaining it as well. Also, the fact that you have different facilitators rotating through always brings a different perspective or a different way of working with the material as well. So we always seek to make it as interactive and dynamic as we can.
Thank you. I'll let you read the responses yourself. We've got a number of people thanking you for the program, and some people's experience about, referring people. Why, in your own words, I suppose, why do you think it has been so successful? It's one of those programs that, has run for a number of years and, with increasing success.
Annette, do you want to say something I can talk underwater on this, but do you want to say something from your perspective with those different eyes of research?
Yes. From what the participants were saying, it was the lived experience focus from the facilitators. So, and the expertise and skills of the facilitators that really came through. So it is not something that anyone could pick up and just run a group on this. That was one of the major themes that came through. Also, participants talked about, and we use the boundary session for an example where they're learning the topic was boundaries. Participants would say, look, I did that a couple of times, and every now and then if I feel like I need to go back and relearn about the boundaries, I do it again. So, and that's what we meant by dipping in and out. They know it's like it's a constant that's there, that they know that in times of heightened stress, they can go back to it. And then if they feel that things have kind of settled down a bit with the family, they can not attend as regularly. So I think one of the keys to the success is the facilitators and their expertise and skills. And having sat in on breakthrough sessions, it's their ability to bring people together and be flexible. The facilitators welcome people contributing as much or as little as possible. People can sit there with their camera off and their microphone off, and that's certainly okay as well. So it's a very welcoming place too.
And I think just what I would add to that too is that all the information and strategies that we talk about are so grounded in the day-to-day support that we provide for families, that's informed through our helpline, through our support groups, through our focus, everything that we do. And so that it's very much relevant and accessible and made real. And I think that people come away with a sense of that's something that I can try or make sense of as well. And so very much the skill, absolutely, of the facilitators, the experience and the utility of the information that we present.
Yeah, that seems to have come out quite strongly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I'll refer you to some of the comments and the thank yous and the praise for the program. Just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and just a reminder to please complete the survey when you can. And thank you, Rob and Annette, for agreeing to share the slides, which we'll do so shortly, in the next few days or next week sometime. And as soon as we can, the recording will be available on the Turning Point website. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Good on you. Thanks. Bye. Ciao.